Okay, today presentation is about restriction rules. First of all, what is restriction rules? What is the role it plays in the Salesforce in objects? We will say one by one. Okay. First of all, what is restrictions? Restriction rules let you enhance your security by allowing certain users to access only specified records. Nothing but you can able to access only the specified records we define at the restriction rule level, and and it will not allow you to access other records other than records which is specified at the determination or the definition of restriction rule. I will just first show you where you in the UI where you can see this restriction rule things. Okay, I will just go to the student object. Also, for your information, you can see these restriction rules only on the custom objects. You can't apply these restriction rules on the standard objects. If you go to student, here you guys can see, right, restriction rules. These are the in the object manager at the object level. You can see restriction rules. Okay, written. So I will just read out the sentences. They prevent users from accessing records that can contain sensitive data or information that isn't essential to their work. Nothing but whichever the data which is unnecessary to the user or user groups, they will restrict. They will restrict using restriction rules, so they can only see the data which is necessary for their work. This is the main thing. So restriction rules filter the records that a user has access to, so that they can access only the records that match the criteria we specify at the level of restriction rule definition. So in short, you can see, if you can say, control the records that a specific user or user group is permitted to see. Main thing is we already know, right? Security, in security level sharing, record level sharing settings, organization wide settings, sharing rules, which is owner based criteria, and manual sharings, criteria based. You give access using those things to the other users, so they can view all those so they can view the records. And after all doing that, also if you want to again restrict in that also, will at that time we'll use restriction rules, and we can avoid users to see unnecessary data which is not related to their work. Here I will just read out this sentence. When a restriction rule is applied to a user or user group, the data that the user has access via archive defaults, sharing rules, or any other sharing mechanisms is filtered by the record criteria. Already here we'll give access first through this record level sharing settings. After that, in that again, if you want to do filtered, at that time we'll use restriction rules, so they can restrict the record access to the specific users. You can see in the diagram here. This diagram is, you can see at the stage of in the object also, while defining restriction rules. Before you defining any new rule, you can see this image here also. Yes, first of all, like here you will get access so that other users can view the data, right? Records data, like organization wide sharing settings, manual sharing, or record based manual sharing, owner based criteria, record based criteria. All those in security you had you guys have already learned to provide access to the other users. And after that, on that records, if you want to restrict, if you want to give filter again, you can use restriction rules. Restriction rules comes at that time. So we'll filter the records based on user and record criteria, which we will going to learn in the while defining the restriction rules. So by doing that, we can filter the records, and after filtering, only records that meet restriction rule criteria are visible to the users of this object, student object records. So this is the main thing. This is the main thing, restricting records. and we will see how to create a restriction rule. It will be mainly based on user and record criteria, and we'll see how to create a restriction rule. Before creating, I will just just want to tell you, like, restriction rules are available for custom objects. As I already said, you can't see these restriction rules on the standard objects. It is available for custom objects, external objects, contracts, events, and tasks. This will not work for other things. If you go to, I will check on account itself now. So you guys can, if you go to account object, if you guys check out, you don't see restriction rule here. So it is for only custom objects. So let's try to define one new restriction rule. Okay. I will keep the name test one. I will make this is active, and you can see user criteria and record criteria. Here in user criteria, you can mention user group or users. I will choose user criteria. I will use any user. Okay, I will take one username. Okay, we'll take expression. Okay, before defining this rule, I will just open this user. I will show before defining restriction rule how the system will show the records. After restriction rule, how the system shows records. I will just open that. I will use new cognito mode.
ವೆರಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ.
Verification. Okay, I have successfully logged in. This is the Suresh users page. Now you can see, you can able to see 30 records almost for you, Suresh user. I will just go to my page now. I will just log. New rule. Test one is active. User criteria. I will take as alias. Already we are in
Is
user
there?
switch.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I will use. Sure. I have given a user criteria. I have mentioned this user details, and I will just restrict the records here in the record criteria. Here you can see select which record the specified users are allowed to see. Except these records, he will not able to see any other records. User or user group. Here we'll just select which user this restriction rule applies to. And here we have like a record field. I will just take one sample field.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I will take prepaid. Okay, Boolean false. Prepaid who all are not paid fee, those records only will come for that user. He can able to see the fee doesn't paid records. I'll just save it. Test one. It is done. Refresh. Go to here. Here, right? Fee paid. Okay, if you guys see here, we'll get all the records which are fee paid is false, right? We have given fee paid field for false. So whatever unchecked box, it will come here in records. Previously, you have seen that there are 30 items, 30 records are there. After we have restricted the records, we can able to see only 13 items, which we defined at the restriction rule level, at the definition of restriction rule.
Yeah, Tabrez, it's my
Yeah.
bad. Could you
Okay.
please repeat once again? Like,
No,
just,
okay.
sorry. Yeah.
Earlier, when we checked, right, you can able to see 30 items over there.
Yeah, that's correct. I just wanted to know from this starting, I mean to say how we configure this particular rule.
Yeah, it is based on user record criteria and user criteria and record criteria. In user criteria, we have mentioned Suresh.
Yeah.
At the record criteria, we have given the record field, which is fee paid, and we have given Boolean, which is a Boolean, right? Checkbox.
Yeah, correct.
Or false. We have to give true or false value. We have given false, which is like unpaid.
Unpaid. Whoever are paid, those details only will be visible on the CUI, right?
No, only false. Who are not paid, right?
Achha.
We have whatever the record criteria we are defining. Only those records this user can able to see, which is necessary for him. So all unnecessary data he can't see. It will be restricted, which is unnecessary, right?
Suresh will be able to see only for this fields.
Example, take if there's some group and they get records like only they have to work with the customers, like with the students who are unpaid, who are not paid the fees. So at that time, which all are the paid records, right? For that records, they don't want that group don't need. They have to work on this unpaid records.
That means only two criteria will be there here. One is user and another one is record, right?
Yeah.
Only these two only we can work this particular.
Yes, based on the different requirements, different things we have to work in real time scenarios. It is just a sample example.
Yeah.
Which is necessary. That's why they will work like that.
Yeah. But in real time also, only these two criteria will come into picture, right?
Come into picture after that record sharings. Again, if you want to filter out in that records access to the other users, to the other user groups, at that time will this will come into picture. What restriction rules?
Okay. For the same restriction rule, we can create one more if possible for the fee paid, which is true.
Yeah, we'll
That's
see
not
that.
problem.
We'll see that.
Okay. Okay.
For same for the other user group you want to assign like that. If same user group, it is not necessary, right? Why you want to give?
Yeah.
We are just already we are restricting that we are filtering out again those other records also they want.
Hmm.
There is unnecessary.
Yeah.
No need of those things. Okay.
Yeah, one doubt.
Yes, ma'am.
Means అంటే ఒక రెస్ట్రిక్షన్ వాల్యూకి ఒక యూజర్ యూజ్ చేయాలా మనం?
అవును మేడం, అది కూడా చెప్తాను నేను. ఒక రిస్ట్రిక్షన్ ఒక యూజర్
ఓకే.
we can create up to two restriction rules per object, but I will tell that thing out now
Yeah.
itself. You can see here, you can create up to 2 restriction rules per object in enterprise and developer editions. Currently we are using developer editions, right? So we can able to create only 2, and up to 5 restriction rules per object in performance and unlimited editions. Also has madam asked now, when creating more than one restriction rule, configure the rules so that only one active rule applies to the given user. Salesforce doesn't validate that only one active rule applies for a given user. Nothing but Salesforce doesn't able to find out that which active rule is applied to given user. Like if you are for the same user, if you create 2 restriction rules and you apply 2 restriction rules for the given user, we can't say which is going to be work on that user. Salesforce doesn't Salesforce itself doesn't validate that thing, so it is difficult to predict which is going to be applied to that user in that object. So if you create 2 active rules and both rules apply to a given user, only one of the active rule is observer, has already here we mentioned. ఆన్సర్ అర్థమైందా మేడం? మీరు అడిగిన క్వశ్చన్ ఆన్సర్ ఇది.
అర్థమైంది.
We'll check that thing also now.
That means based on editions only we can able to use this.
Sorry?
Based on editions only we can able to use this. That means enterprise, developer and unlimited.
Yes, in those editions. Yes, editions. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. We will go to. Okay, I will use another rule. We'll try to create one more rule for the same user. We'll try to find out if those rules will work for that user or not.
Yes.
I will use medium here. Okay, I have given the same user Suresh above, and I'm using medium here in the pick list, and I will use English here. Okay, before creating this restriction, we'll check. We'll check student object records who has medium English. Yeah, already I have mentioned here. Okay. In 30 records, only Jasmine has medium English. Okay, only Jasmine has. Okay, we have given English here. So now only one record has to be shown on the Suresh object. Suresh in the Suresh for the user Suresh. Correct. Medium English. Here you can see only Jasmine has English medium. Okay, it is now showing, right? This will become active. And what about the previous previous restriction rule, where it has gone? So now you guys has understand, right? Like only one active rule will be observed if you're creating two restriction rules for the user. We have given two restriction rules. First one we have seen, right? Who all are which all are the records having fee paid equals to false, which is unchecked boxes fee paid. Those we have we have seen in the Suresh for the Suresh user. But after creating another rule, we are just seeing now the record which is having English medium. So it restricted above restriction rule and all the records. Madam, understand, madam? మీరు అడిగిన క్వశ్చన్ కి ఇది ఆన్సర్.
Just
Okay. Okay, restriction rules are applied to the following Salesforce features: list views, lookups, related lists, reports, search. These all things you have already seen in admin part. Socal and Social, which are query languages, you are going to learn in the development sessions in upcoming days, which are query languages, Socal and Social. These things we don't have still idea. You will learn in the development. And you can see here. Okay.
Actually, in previous slide, it will override with the latest.
Yeah, latest, right? What happened is me and Anand worked out on that yesterday, but for us what happened is the second one, right, it didn't work out. The first one has worked out. Now it is second one is working, so it is not overriding. It is difficult to predict which is going to work.
Difficult. Your voice is spotty actually.
Sorry, now it is okay.
Yeah, now it is fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, it is not overriding, Shanmukh.
Okay.
Actually, when we tried, right, the second one didn't work. After creating the second rule, right, restriction rule, the first one only worked in the records, in the other user records. But now what happened is this second restriction rule is working. The first one is not working.
means the same user, right?
Yeah, for the same user.
Okay.
So,
but why it is
difficult to predict which is going to work, which is not. So it is not a good practice. It is not a good way to assign restriction rules to a user or to a user group.
Because we don't know, right? Like
which is going to be work.
Yeah, and if the first rule is coming out the output, then we really don't know like how to work with this.
Yes,
like,
yes. Yesterday when we and Anand worked on these things, that time it reflected in a different way. The behavior is differently. First only worked. We have created first restriction rule, and after that we have again defined another restriction rule, and we have applied to the same user. But far as what happened is first restriction rule only got worked. So rule doesn't work over there. But today what happened now? Second rule is second rule. Yeah, this is so it is difficult to solve. Which is so here they mentioned, right? Salesforce doesn't validate that only one active rule applies for a given. So Salesforce from Salesforce, only it is difficult to predict. It is difficult to validate.
Acha, acha. Mhm.
Yeah,
That
once
means
try in your
It's like a assignment rule, right?
consent,
Yeah, one rule, one.
In assignments, only one we can assign only.
Yeah, one condition only we can apply. Same like that only we
Yes.
can create a restriction
Only
rule
one.
also, right?
Yeah, only one active rule, only one thing, only one assignment rule we can able to create. Only one assignment will be active. But here both are active.
but we don't know which one will execute.
Yes.
That means which one will appear. Yeah.
In
But
assignment,
That means the
it is
functionality is
different.
itself is like that. You are
Yeah,
saying.
functionality is itself is like that.
But you are saying one rule, one restriction rule is working, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Only one rule is working, but
Yeah.
both are inactive. But in assignment rules, only one rule can be
You can
active.
do active at a
Yes.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
both
can't
can't be
apply.
active.
Yeah, okay.
Here the scenario is different.
Yes, sir.
So what you guys can try is you guys try to create. You guys define two restriction rules and try to assign and create one more user. Already, I don't think if you have another user in your arc, try to create two users and define this type of record criteria as two different users and try if these things will work or not, like both the things will work or not.
Yeah, okay, we'll see that.
Yeah, create two users and create two different record criteria, two different users. Here I have given one user only, right? You have seen this type of behavior, this type of functionality. You try to create. It should work if you are assigning two different users and two. I don't know if it will work. You guys can try that thing.
Mhm. But Tabas, even in sharing rules also we can able to do this, right? Based on the profile or record or this one
Yeah.
metadata and data, we can restrict the access, right, to the user or profile.
Yeah, users after doing all those things again we want to restrict, right? At that time we are using this restriction rules.
But not very often we can
Yeah.
use.
Here,
right?
here, right, in restriction rules, you are giving only specified type of records based on the users. There we are not doing all those things. Right? They are all mixed up things. We have to do in that also. That is only up to record level sharing.
Okay. But how often we will use this?
I don't know, Shamukh, how often will this is.
Like for the record restricting, maybe I know that it depends on the requirement.
Like if you say example, if there is any department, if there is something I have seen example, like there is a department in account, there is a separate department. If there are many departments, right, those department will get access only to the particular records which they are working.
Understand? Yeah.
Yeah, and which are not useful for them. What is the use if they are searching for that records? If they get records which are not useful for them, which they don't work, what is the use? No use, right? Only records, they should get only records they are going to work.
Correct. Unnecessarily, we are not supposed to share the data to other departments. That's what
Yes, correct. Yes. At that time, it is really helpful.
That means this example, you worked in a real-time scenario or how is it?
No, I have seen in the yesterday itself.
Okay.
Just an example, I have seen that. You can go through the link restriction rules in help itself, Salesforce help. You will learn many things.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you can see here, like it has you said, right, sharing settings. At the level of sharing settings, we'll provide access to the other users based on organization-wide defaults, role hierarchies, sharing rules, which are owner-based and criteria-based, and manual sharings. This is we'll do all these things based on profile, and if you want to give additional access to the users, we'll use permission sets. Correct. These all things you guys have done already. So after then, If you want to again filter out in those things, again you want to restrict records, at that time we'll define restriction rules. You can see visible records matching the record criteria. These all are the which we have shared through organization wide sharing settings. These are the hidden records. After we'll restrict, right? This all which are we will see here. So this color hidden records outside the record criteria. This for this users won't get access. Only they can see after we will define restriction rules. They can see specified records only. Yeah, that's it. I will share this reference link. Whatever the information, right? I got everything from this in this, which is help.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see limitations. Many more examples over there. Everything most information will be available regarding restriction rules. I have given you some basic info and what is the main purpose of these restriction rules in that way, like, so you can guys know what is this exactly.
Okay,
So,
Tabrez.
yeah, I hope you guys have understood this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, okay. Last time, 1 minute.